All right, Emily. So thank you so much for being here. A four-time leukemia survivor, elementary, middle school, high school, and college, right?
Yep.
That's amazing. Well, the floor is yours to share your story.
Okie dokie. Well, thank you guys. Yeah, thanks for inviting me, Bailey. I live in Denver, Colorado. So we are in the middle of the crazy spring, which is like 40 degrees today and 70 and 80 tomorrow, and all of that stuff. So that's where I'm at. But yeah, I have had leukemia 4 times, which is totally nuts. And actually, this is a really cool month to be sharing with you guys because I just hit 20 years off all my treatments. So yeah, so that is, yes, very exciting, and cheers to many, many more. I actually just made this little video. It's like 1 minute that I was thinking would be cool to show you guys. Okay, I'll share this quick video that will give you guys just a glimpse into the many, many, many years, and then I will explain more. Okay, can you guys see that picture of me? Okay, can you hear?
Girl, you'll see the world, you'll come to learn that falling in love is a strange work of art. All of your battles will shape who you are, and know that your scars are my favorite part. I want you to know this.
So that is just a small glimpse into everything. But I was first diagnosed when I was 5, almost 6, in the spring. My parents really didn't know what was going on. I kept getting different, just little sicknesses. I just kept getting like the flus, like all those kinds of things, but just was not getting better. And at first they thought I was anemic, and then they finally realized it was leukemia. So I did, starting in kindergarten, I started doing chemo, and the protocol that I did was a 2-year protocol. And I did great with it. Like, I'm still mostly able to do all the things that my parents are really good about encouraging me. And I actually think this is a huge part of my healing, as my parents were always good about like getting me to continue to live life as much as possible. And so I would go to school. I was a big sports person, so I'd play soccer, I'd do the things, I'd hang out with my friends. And of course there were times that I didn't feel up to it. And back then, like that was in like 87, 88, they didn't have all the, like the anti-nausea medicine and all of that stuff. So I mean, it was definitely like I didn't even have a port or anything. Like all my medication was, they had to do IVs every single time. And so it was crazy, but it was one of those things where from the very beginning, my parents were always, I think this is actually another huge part, is mindset. I think our body is so powerful, but I do think our mind is equally as important. And so I think because my parents always set that stage of like, okay, what do we have to do to get through this? And so it was never, I never ever felt like, oh, I'm not going to get through this. It just always felt like, what do I have to do to get through it? And so I think that was really a huge piece. And then also just continuing to, like I said, enjoying things so that it wasn't like my only focus was treatment, was a big thing. And actually at the time, that first time, there were parts of it that I kind of liked because I got to skip school, like to go to treatment, and I got to spend a lot of time with my mom, and a lot of people gave me presents and things like that. So some degree, I was kind of like, ooh, I don't know. I got like, some of these perks are kind of awesome. But yeah, I got through all of that great. The doctors were really happy. And then in 5th grade, so 3 years after, so I had actually just had like that 5-year appointment, the 2 years of treatment, and then the 3 years after. my wrist started really hurting. And it was very weird because that's not like a normal thing of, a sign of leukemia. So at first they thought maybe it was broken because of all the sports that I played. It wasn't broken. They did like further tests. And then finally, just because of my history of leukemia, they did a biopsy, a bone biopsy, and that's where they found that the leukemia was back. So then they did radiation to my wrist. And then also I did 2 more years of chemo. So from like 5th grade through 7th grade. And I did really well again with it. I lost my hair this time. The first time I did not lose my hair. My hair kind of thinned, but I didn't lose it all the way. So that was probably the most traumatic thing when I was going through at that time, because I was in middle school. Everyone's awkward and feeling weird anyways with all the body changes, let alone losing my hair. And my school was really good about it. I mean, they let me I didn't really like wearing wigs. I tried it like twice and it just didn't feel right for me. And so I would wear hats. They let me wear hats to school, even though, you weren't supposed to. But even that was, different because I was like the only one in the entire school that was wearing a hat. But for the most part, again, I was able to continue to go to school. I missed some days, but I was that student that like just wanted to plan like my chemo around my tests so that I wouldn't have to make them up. I was like, I just want to get it done and not have to deal with it. And I was really lucky. I know a lot of people have stories about their friends kind of, disappearing on them. And that wasn't my case at all. Like my friends, they were there for me. Sometimes they would, even if it worked out, go with me to treatment or different things. And it was I never felt like isolated, which was huge. And I don't know if that's partially the way that my family also treated everything. Like they were also very open about all of that with my family as well as with their friends. Like it was never, like a secret or anything like that. And then I was on chemo for 2 years, finished up towards the end of like 7th grade, and then did great. And then junior year in high school, so again, it was like after that 5-year mark, which was the craziest thing. My doctors were just like, we don't understand what is happening. But this time I felt the pain in my hips, which makes more sense because of, the overgrowth of the cells. But I started getting pain in my hips again. First, they thought maybe it was a fracture or something from sports. I played soccer and tennis in high school. But then as it went along, I just knew, like once I finally went in to go get a bone marrow test, I already knew that that's what it was, that the leukemia was back. So at this point we were looking at like a stem cell transplant or a bone marrow transplant. At the time, we kind of decided that the better route was a stem cell transplant. And I have 3 siblings, and so they all got tested. And my brother was a perfect match, which was kind of crazy because he has all kinds of special needs. He's on the autism spectrum. He has Tourette's, ADHD. So we kind of had this feeling that if somebody was going to be the match, it was going to be him. And he did great. And luckily with stem cell transplants, they just take it's just like an IV. It's not like the out of the bone marrow. So it wasn't like invasive or anything that he had to get. And I did great with it. And this is another thing where again, like mindset, I think is so huge, because I asked my doctor, I was like, okay, what's the fastest anyone has ever gotten out of the hospital from, recovering? And he told me 21 days. And I said, I will be out of here in 21 days. And on the day of 21, I was out of that hospital. And I did great. My cells recovered and everything. I stayed home from senior year for the first couple months, but then went back to school by like the end of October. There was actually our high school did a really cool field day, which was not like your typical field day. Like we made these like huge, like 9x9 wooden moving parts banners that would go along with our theme. And we'd have these marches and songs. I mean, it was like this huge, crazy thing. It's like hard to even explain, but I wanted to be back by that field day. And so I was back by that field day, continued to do well. But the hard part at that point was, it was like I was back in school, but my body was still so tired and fatigued that I wasn't like, I was on the soccer team and on the tennis team, but I couldn't really play because I just didn't have the energy yet. My stamina wasn't back. So just knowing that I just had made, sophomore year, I had made like varsity soccer. And then here comes junior year where I'm supposed to be like starting and playing and like doing all these things. And I couldn't even have the energy to, play my senior year. So that was one of the hardest things that time. It was just like missing out on those things. And I'm like, gosh, this is supposed to be like the most exciting, fun thing, all these things I've worked for, and enjoying it all. And I was enjoying some of it, but it was just, again, like my body just still needed to recover. And I think that was one of the big things that nobody really talked to me about. And I'm realizing now, many years later, as I've talked to many other cancer survivors, that it feels like, once you get to the end of treatment, you're like, oh, I'm done. That's like the finish line, right? Which it's not at all. Like you have so much more mentally and physically to recover from after that. That, I didn't have anyone telling me about that, or, giving me ideas of kind of a guide or anything. And so, I just kind of did it on my own. And then I went off to college. I went to Northwestern in Chicago. And this spring, actually the kind of the winter-ish, but then the spring, that same hip pain started coming back. And at first I was kind of like, I was, oh, maybe it's just something else. And then it's like, I couldn't deny it. And my sister was actually at Northwestern too. She was a senior and I was a freshman. So finally one day, we had gone out to dinner and I'm like, you have to take me to the hospital. Like the pain was just so bad. I couldn't take it anymore. And so she took me to the emergency room, and it was kind of crazy. At first, I actually hate being on pain medicine, but at that point I was like, just give me something, because this is so bad. I like can't bear it. And I have a high pain tolerance. And they wouldn't give me any pain medicine at first, because they like, I don't know, they probably thought like I was just trying to get pain medicine. And my sister was like, seriously, if she's asking for pain medicine, you have to give her some, because she is not someone to take that kind of stuff. Like I've gotten bottles and bottles and bottles of pain medicine that I never even use, because I'm like, I hate the feeling of it. But then my parents came down. They drove me right back to Michigan, where we were living at the time, up to Ann Arbor. And this time, they really didn't know what to do with me, because they're like, well, we've done all the protocols, we did a stem cell transplant. Like, what do we do now? They were trying to figure out, is it something else? Are we missing the type of, cancer it is? And, I'm sure there's so many new markers since then. I'm sure there's things that they might've been able to figure out, but at the time they really couldn't figure out anything new. So they just kind of did this like mishmash of things. And so I did some antibody treatment, which at the time they didn't have that treatment where I was. So I had to go to Minnesota to get it with my mom. So my mom and I lived in Minnesota for a few months. And then they just gave me all different kinds of different chemos, but it wasn't like necessarily a normal protocol. And this time my body really had a hard time. And I know I've talked to Bailey about this, but like one of the medications neurologically really affected me right when I got there. So there's like the first week of being in the hospital, I don't even remember. And I remember waking up. I mean, I was awake. I wasn't like in a coma, but I saw my dad, and it was like when I finally kind of come to. And I do remember these little bits and pieces of like them asking me questions and not knowing, like feeling like, oh, I should know how to answer that. But they'd be like, count backwards from 20. And I'm like, I know I should be able to do this, but like, why can't I do it? Like there was just a little tiny bits like that. But I remember coming to, and my dad was sitting next to me, and I'm like, how long have I been here? Or what? I said, what day is it? And my dad's like, it's Saturday. And I knew I had gone into the hospital on Friday, and I'm like, I've only been here for one day. And I knew that felt weird. I'm like, it feels like it's been longer, but I'm like, I've only been here for one day. And my dad's like, no, you've been here for a whole week. And that was so freaky. I was like, oh my gosh. But I know my parents were just so grateful, because they were like, are you ever, coming back? Like, is this permanent, or is it going to wear off? And then a few months after that, my body was just so immunosuppressed that they think what they think now is what happened is I got some kind of cellulitis inside my sinus, but what my cheek started like getting swollen. And so I went in the hospital, and they were kind of watching it, and it was getting swollen and swollen. And they could see the redness was moving down my chest. They were marking it with like a Sharpie, and they didn't know what to do. They were trying to give me antibiotics, like nothing was helping. So finally they did an emergency surgery in the middle of the night. And thankfully the like head of ENT was the on-call person that night. So the best of the best. And they went in, and what they did is just open up my sinuses, and they really didn't know what they were going to have to do. They're like, we really don't know. It's just kind of exploratory. But they ended up taking out a little bit of dead tissue that was in there, which they think might have been kind of the cellulitis. But and then they didn't do anything else. But slowly then they put 2 drains on my neck, and slowly everything kind of started draining out. So they think my body was just overreacting to that and couldn't handle it. And they think the infection just fed on like the tissue in my cheek, which is why it's kind of indented there. But slowly it all started going down, and finally went away. But that was, yeah, definitely super intense. And so, you know, after those 2 years, I finished up treatment. I went to college at Northwestern and did treatment there in Evanston. And after those 2 years, and that was in 2002, it hasn't come back since. And so they have no clue what it was. I think it's probably a combination of a lot of things, of the mindset of, you know, continuing to just living life, but also Bailey and I talked a little bit about, you know, and a nurse of mine had mentioned this as well, that they've seen this sometimes where when those intense things happen, like that infection that I had in my face, that sometimes, you know, your whole body kind of comes out to fight so hard that it just kills everything and helps heal it. So who knows if that was the answer? I mean, I don't think we'll ever truly know. But I've been so fortunate. I mean, the only long-term effects I have, my heart is super healthy, my lungs are super healthy, my brain is healthy. I mean, I definitely feel like I still have some like chemo brain moments, but overall it's really healthy. But I have avascular necrosis in my joints from all the chemo and the radiation. So I have both my hips replaced and my knee replaced and my shoulder replaced, but they are doing amazing. And then my other joints act up a little bit. You know, there'll definitely be times where they really, really are painful. And I have an acupuncture that helps with that. And I actually have gotten some creams that have helped with that. But then also the infertility part is the other big one. They didn't have all of the ability to freeze eggs and all that stuff before. So unfortunately, that was not an option for me. And then I thought I was going to be able to carry, but we tried to do that and my body wasn't really reacting the way it needed to be for that either. So we ended up having, you saw my twin boys at the end there. I have identical twin boys who are 6, and we ended up having an egg donor, and I picked out someone just like me. and then we had a gestational carrier, and talk about a huge blessing. One of my best friends from Northwestern, one of her friends from high school who lived nearby, she would hang out with us sometimes. Her name is Gail. And she knew, because she knew me the last time that I was going through all that treatment. And she was done having kids, and she volunteered to carry for us. And she said, I love being pregnant. We don't want to have any more kids, but I would love to carry for you. So she carried for us. And it took us 3 times of implanting for it finally to take. And one of the embryos split, which is how we got identical twin boys. So yeah, so such a blessing, like so grateful for that. And talk about just, yeah, such a miracle. And so yeah, those are the main things. But other than that, like I feel like so many people deal with so many things that, you know, they can't work, or they can't do other things, or, you know, they just don't have the energy. And for the most part, my energy is good. You know, I feel like I have my moments, but but I really, after being done with treatment, learned so much more about what we were talking about at the beginning, about nutrition and exercise and even energy work and, you know, spiritual work and all those different things that I didn't really know. I mean, I was an athlete growing up, so by default, I just was doing that anyways, but I wasn't really thinking about nutrition at all. And it wasn't something they talked about at all when I was going through treatment. I know I've talked to people now that they do talk about that, but I definitely have learned so much about just, yeah, it makes sense, of course, like what you put in your body is going to be what helps your body heal or what helps create disease in your body. But like, I didn't think like that. And so, so yes, I've learned a lot about that, about exercise, about, you know, just taking care of your body and your mind and your energy and all of it. And I think those are all huge components that could probably have helped me heal a lot faster, but I didn't know about it. And, you know, it's either here nor there at this point. But now I'm just like, the more people we can help to know that as they are going through treatment or even before going through anything, so that they don't have to go through any of that stuff, would be great. And so, yeah, that's really where I have landed professionally as well. That's what I do is I help people with, okay, what can we do to help your body, assist your body with, you know, your gut health being as healthy as possible and your mind being as healthy as possible and all those different things. I don't have a background in the medical field, but just my own learning that I've done and, you know, and helping people just to realize how powerful their body really is. I think, you know, like we talked about at the beginning, I think unfortunately our culture has kind of made it like this Band-Aid effect of like, oh, you have this problem, let me give you this medicine. Oh, now you have this other problem, let me give you this other medicine. Oh, you have this, and not really getting to the root cause of it. And so now I've really realized like, I have an amazing acupuncturist that is, you know, so helpful, amazing massage therapist, chiropractor, like all these people. And then including my own learning that I've done and surrounded myself with other people that are even more knowledgeable than me, you know, in nutrition and things like that, to really get a handle on, okay, what is happening in my body? I don't want to just Band-Aid the problem, you know, the symptom. I want to actually get to the root, and just really helping people shift that mindset. And I think the more we can do that with, you know, helping people, the less we'll see these diseases. I mean, they're not going to go away, but hopefully we can, you know, either prevent more or make them not as impactful on people's health or help them heal faster, you know, all of those different things. So yeah, so I love sharing my story because I know the impact having, you know, hearing someone else's story, like we talked about at the beginning, can have for people just feeling like, oh my gosh, I didn't think I could get through this. And if you can do it, I can do it. So I'm like, okay, if it can help one person. And I did end up writing a book because so many people told me, they're like, you need to share your story. It's here. I can share the link with you guys. It's called Hope Triumphs All. I was not thinking about writing a book, but people were like, you really need to write a book because people need to hear your story. And I know personally for me, I never wanted to be a part of any of the communities of cancer survivors when I was going through all my treatment. Like it just didn't feel right at the time. And then afterwards was when I really felt like I wanted to be connected with other survivors. But so I know sometimes having a book is also helpful because you can do it, you know, in your own home or whatever. Yeah, so that's all I really have, you guys. But like I said, I am totally open to questions or anything.
That's amazing. Emily, that was a great presentation of your story, and your story in itself is so wonderful. And yeah, it's just really overall amazing. Thank you so much for sharing.
You're welcome. Thank you for asking. Thanks for having me.
Of course. How do you finance the services that support your health, acupuncture, massage?
So I some of it, like my acupuncturist, like our flex spending account will cover. So I mean, yeah, I'm still paying for it, but like it's, you know, kind of discounted with flex spending account. So that's helpful. Same with chiropractor, some of the massage they will take, some of it they won't. But I have my own business. So it's important to me to like set aside some of that money that I make to be able to do that self-care. So that's mostly what I do. And then as far as diet, and what is your diet like? As far as diet, I really just focus on, I mean, to put it pretty simply, like half my plate is leafy greens and veggies. A quarter of my plate is my protein. And then I have my healthy fat and my healthy carbs. So really just having those balanced meals. That's the the main thing. And then obviously it can look different depending on what you're having, but that's kind of what I always have in my mind when I'm eating, but just trying to eat lots of very plant heavy, lots of fruits and veggies, and a lot of different colors and variety of fruits and vegetables. Always looking for resources for cash pages for those interested in wellness. So any research, yeah. I'm trying to think. I know it is nice to have different resources. I mean, I talk to a lot of people like on a one-to-one basis, and I have resources that I can give people, but I don't really have, I'm trying to think of like a good resource just in general. I mean, the Livestrong Foundation, are you guys tapped into that? They have some pretty cool resources. I know, he has created something really amazing with that organization, and they have really cool resources for cancer survivors, both during and after treatment, resources to help people with, all those different things, nutrition, with navigating the system, with helping support with financial stuff, all of that. Like even I think fertility stuff, which I didn't know about when we were going through it all. So yeah, if you go to Livestrong, they have tons of resources for the cancer community, and also for, people supporting people going through it.
Can you describe, you said a quarter of your plate is protein. What kind of protein do you eat?
I mean, I try to eat stuff that's like clean, that's grass fed, no antibiotics, hormones, that kind of thing. We eat a lot of chicken. We eat actually buffalo, and we eat beef. I also will eat things, like beans and things like that are not animal based, that are plant based as well. And then I also have like I'll have like protein shakes that have like pea protein, and things like that. So kind of a variety. And yeah, I'm not, we eat mostly, I would say, white meat, but then we add in some red meat. And then, but like probably maybe 4 ounces of that. So it's not a ton. And then, yeah, I'll make like protein shakes where I have like a protein powder, and then I'll add in like some spinach and some berries and like almond milk or coconut milk. That's kind of my standard. I'll spice it up sometimes, but that's kind of my go-to, that sort of has all those components that you would have on your plate, but in the smoothie. And it's actually really great because my kids love those smoothies too. And so then they're getting those leafy greens in there, and they're getting the protein and the berries and all of that. Your business helping others based on your experience. Yeah. So I have a business. I've actually partnered with a company that's called Quintessential Sciences, Q Sciences for short. And they have lots of different products that help with pain and anxiety and stress and gut health and mind health and all kinds of stuff. So, and then they also have like the business aspect, that I have a lot of people that are, they're just wanting more flexibility in their life. And so helping them get their business up and running so they can do something on their terms from home, depending on how much energy they have or how much time they want to spend doing it, or, where they're at in their life, or just creating something extra to pay for whatever it is, whether it's those, holistic health things to add into their life, or just taking, alleviating stress, that kind of thing. So yeah, so it's been really cool. It's funny because I thought after all my cancer treatment that I would go into the medical field, but then the thought of like being a doctor or something like that, I knew I wanted a family, and I was like, oh my gosh, I just can't imagine trying to balance those things. And I know people do, and I have friends that do. But so I had actually ended up going into teaching. And then about 11 years ago, I started shifting to this, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so my calling. This makes so much more sense with everything. So I could have the flexibility. I could have, that being able to help people with that health piece and the finance piece, and just living life to their fullest. Cause that was really also the biggest thing, is like, I don't want to waste any time. Like I want to do everything now, cause I don't know how many days I'm going to get. And I don't want to be like, oh, I'm going to wait till I'm 65 to retire and then live life. Like, no, I'm going to do the things that I want to do now. And I want to help as many people be able to do the same, so that we're enjoying all of it. Cause that's truly what life is about.
That's great. Can you go back to your diet again about, you said healthy fats and healthy carbs. Can you describe the fats and carbs
Yeah.
that you have on your plate?
Yeah. So we do a lot of brown rice, but then also fruits are carbs, which I think a lot of people forget. So so any kind of fruits, berries, oranges, bananas. I'm actually gluten-free only because I realize that just causes bloating, but we'll do a lot of like brown rice pasta or quinoa pasta or quinoa, those kinds of things. And then for healthy fats, a lot of times it's like the olive oil that we're cooking with. Also any kind of nuts are great. So almonds, any kind of nuts really. Almonds, I like pecans. Also avocado is another big one. We love avocados. My boys love avocados, so that's a great one. Those are probably and then almond milk, coconut milk, cashew milk, any of those kind of almond milks are great to add into a smoothie for as well. So yeah, those are probably our main ones. Yeah.
Do you eat organic?
Sometimes it kind of depends on what the food is. And we don't have like a hard fast rule about eating organic, but we do our best of kind of what's available and what prices are and things like that, because sometimes it can be expensive, but sometimes it's not really that different. So it kind of depends. We're more strict on like with meats and stuff, doing like no antibiotics, no hormones, grass-fed, making sure that it's good quality stuff so that we're not pumping our bodies full of that stuff. And then avoiding a lot of processed stuff. I mean, I'm not saying we're 100% all the time, but trying to do as much of the fresh fruits and the fresh, meats and veggies and all that kind of stuff. So we're not adding in all those extra chemicals from the processed foods.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Yeah, I know kids are tricky. I mean, my kids, they're pretty good about eating, but there's definitely times where they're like nothing. But I don't know if you've tried to do smoothies, but it is a great way to hide stuff in there because they can't tell that there's spinach in there or so she won't even eat fruits. That's interesting. I feel like my kids will eat any fruit that you give them, but veggies are a little pickier. Yeah, I don't know. I think you just got to start trying to get them to at least eat, a little bit. I tell my kids, I'm like, well, you at least have to eat, yeah, one of these things, one bite of this or whatever, and start getting them to do it and just get into the habit of doing it. How old is your daughter, Candace?
She's 11. She's
11.
She's the 1 percentile of her weight. She's 63 pounds at 11, and so they're just trying to figure out like how to get weight on her. She won't eat smoothies, or I've tried a lot of different things already, but I just am not successful in getting her to gain weight.
Yeah, that's tough. What about we make a lot of I have some good recipes for like protein muffins and protein bars and stuff that my kids will eat like candy. Would you think that's something that she might try?
I will definitely have to try those things. She's a texture eater, and we're about to start seeing a specialist, which is like a speech therapy swallow, check her swallowing. She may have the myofunctional disorder. The dentist is noticing some things with her teeth, and so I'm trying to make sure that, I guess my greatest fear is always that because of her nutrition or lack of that, I don't want her to end up having some type of childhood cancer or something because of the fact that she's not feeding her body what it needs, and I don't want that to be on my watch. So I'm always
totally
trying to encourage her to take her vitamin D and supplements, and because she had a level 16, and which is way low. It needs to be like a 30 at least and stuff.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so,
yeah.
yeah. So I'm always asking nutrition questions.
No, yeah, that's
so
good.
thank you.
Yeah, I just started having my kids take these little gummies that have a bunch of vitamins because I couldn't get them to take anything else. So they have a bunch of like vitamin D, vitamin A, vitamin E, vitamin C, and actually taste really good. So they asked me for them. So I'm like, okay, this is a good sign. You're gonna get your vitamins through these little gummies. I can share those with you. But yeah, I was gonna say, I mean, it's good that you're getting it checked out because I know I had a friend that her son was having some speech issues and was really, really picky eater. And then they figured out that he needed his tonsils and his adenoids out. And as soon as they took them out, everything like went away. So I think it could, yeah, who knows? I mean, it could be something going on in her throat, or, you know, that's just uncomfortable to swallow, or, so it's good that you're looking into it and making sure that, you know, it doesn't continue to perpetuate. Because yeah, you want to make sure she's absorbing those nutrients and getting those nutrients to help her body be able to take care of itself.
Absolutely. Well, I definitely want your contact information.
Oh yeah, I can put my contact information in here. I'll give you my it's the easiest way to get a hold of me is to text me. So here's my cell phone. And then here's my email. It's emilyyatsko-sandusky@gmail.com. And then here's my website. Sandusky, if I can spell my own name. bestlife.com. There you go.
Okay. Is that are you open to having patients reaching out to you in one form or another?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm happy to talk about anything, whether people just want to talk about, you know, connect with another cancer survivor, or want to know what I've done, or some of the things that I've used to help with pain or help with my gut health or whatever. Yeah, or they're looking for, you know, some supplement ideas or finance help. Yeah, whatever. Yeah, absolutely. They can reach out to me. And I can let them know if it's something I can help them with, or, you know, help try to direct them to somebody else that can help them.
That's great. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Awesome. So what's in the future for you?
I don't know, just continuing to stay healthy, continuing to just remind myself how everything is such a blessing and every day is such a blessing. I think it's sometimes so easy to lose sight, you know, of that. And I think, you know, this pandemic, as awful as it's been, I do think that that's one thing that it's kind of anchored people back into, is just reminding ourselves of, you know, how do we really want to spend life and what really does matter to us, and, you know, being more present in the moment of, you know, when I'm hanging with my kids, enjoying that and not thinking about something else, or spending time with people I really care about, planning new adventures because I love to travel. So all that good stuff.
Awesome. Is there any way we can support you or pray for you?
I don't know. I mean, just, yeah, continuing to, I think, send out all that good, healthy energy to me and everyone else, and finding health and happiness and joy in all of our lives, and continue to spread that with others. Yeah. Oh, Sheena has a question.
Yeah, Sheena, what's your question?
Thanks. I was just curious if you could maybe elaborate just a little bit on when you were going through everything and you felt the fatigue and that tiredness. Did you force or push yourself to get up and go, or like was there a battle that happened within you? I'm just curious about how you were able to like find a balance to, so yeah.
You know, that is a really good question. I think sometimes I pushed myself too much, but I also think sometimes that's good, because otherwise, you know, you're just moping around. I like, college was probably the hardest because I left during the spring of my freshman year. And so I missed that last quarter of freshman year. And then I went back in the fall of my sophomore year, and my parents were like, you can wait, are you sure you're ready? And I think I should have waited at least one more quarter, but I didn't. I was like so eager to get back to my friends. But on the other hand, as hard as that first quarter was, I do think that if I had been home, doing nothing, it wouldn't have been good for my mind either. So I don't know. I think it is a balance. I do think it's good to push yourself a little bit, because otherwise I think you can fixate all on the disease instead of life. But I do think you also need to give your body some grace and be like, okay, my body needs to rest. It needs to heal. And part of that is resting and allowing your body to do that. So I don't know. I'm not sure what I was,
because I know there's a lot of like shame in our society around like performing and being there and showing up, and so we can kind of beat ourselves up. And I was curious, did you ever have any of that like negative self-talk, or were you just really positive through all of it?
I was frustrated with my body, for sure. Like, I was, when I was like trying to keep up with people, and especially that first quarter when I went back to college, even my muscles were like so atrophied. I was really weak, like my body, like if I barely like tripped, I would like fall to the ground. I couldn't like catch myself like you normally can when you trip, things like that. So I was frustrated, but I think my way of dealing with that was like, okay, I'm going to do this. Like I can do this, which I do think built up my strength as opposed to just laying in bed all day. But at the other time, yeah, I mean, I think I definitely, I think was hard on myself, but I think it was also the comparison of like being used to being an athlete and now being like, and now I can barely like walk up the stairs. I never felt that pressure from outside, but it could have, like the pressure I was putting on myself could have definitely come, without me knowing, come from the society pressure. I did feel though, like once I started looking healthy and still not having my strength back, I definitely got judgment around like people being like, why are you acting like, for example, we went to an amusement park, and it was before I had my hips replaced, and I was in so much pain and I couldn't barely walk. So I had a wheelchair that they pushed me around. Because they had a wheelchair, they would allow us to go to the front of the line. And I definitely overheard people being like, oh my gosh, they're like using the wheelchair to be able to go to the front of the line. And I was like, wow, it is crazy how judgmental people are without even knowing people's stories. And same with, I had like a handicap sticker so I could park close so I didn't have to walk far. And the same thing, like I looked on the outside, probably looked normal to people because I could walk there. It hurt like heck, but I could walk a little bit. But just that kind of thing was interesting. Instead of, and I'm sure there are people that were like wondering like, oh, I wonder what's wrong, which is fine. The curiosity is normal, but I think it's more that judgment piece of like, and it's funny because I realize how much that's kind of ingrained in human nature, because I'll catch myself sometimes like having one of those kind of thoughts about someone else, and I'm like, wait a minute, I have no idea what that person's story is, who am I to judge? So just catching yourself. But
yeah, my boyfriend was handicapped, so I definitely know the experience with the handicap sticker window and whatever. But yeah, that's incredible. So I'm just blown away at your mindset, like how you didn't let it just trample you. It's just amazing. So I'm really inspired, and I'm so glad you wrote a book and you're getting it out, your story out. Thank you so much for being here today. And yeah, it's just wonderful. It's just so wonderful.
Well, thank you guys for listening. And my book is in that website I sent, EmilySanduskyBestLife.com. The link for my book is in there.
Awesome.
So yeah, I would love to get that out to more like practitioners as a resource, you know, just to have in like their library and their like oncology library, things like that people could read. Because I know I've given it away to like a ton of people. Like whenever I have someone that's going through treatments or whatever, I just give them one. But I think it would be cool to have it as a resource for people.
Yeah, definitely. We can pray for that, right, Bailey?
Yes, that would be great.
Yeah,
sounds good.
Absolutely. I love that. I really actually, I think that's a brilliant idea to have like a patient survivor story bookshelf in every oncologist office to inspire.
Yeah, that would be a really cool idea, because I know a lot of people have written stories and everyone's story is so different that everyone could be, yeah, definitely helpful in gaining that strength and hope.
That's so cool. Awesome. Well, yeah, we will absolutely pray for that. Any other question before we go?
For my sister possibly having to have that biopsy. And her name's Cinnamon, like the spice.
Okay. All right. Well, let's pray then. Dear gracious Lord, thank you so much for this time together. Father, thank you so much for Emily and for bringing her through so much at such a young age, Lord. I thank you for the way that you have worked good through her biggest challenges, Lord. First the cancer, Lord, and also her joint pains, and also infertility, Lord. I thank you so much for the blessings of her surgeries, of her joint replacements, Lord, and also for her sons. Thank you so much for her friend's friend who was willing and able to carry her sons into the world, Lord. And thank you so much for the work that Emily is doing to help other people with their health, whether they have cancer or not. Thank you for her generosity to share the hope that she's found with others freely. And I pray that you bless her, Lord. I pray you continue to give her excellent health in many, many years. Thank you for 20 years. Just so recently, Lord, what perfect timing for her to share her story, Lord. Thank you so much for her. And I just pray you bless her work, her business. I pray that her story would get into every oncologist's office, Lord. Please help us to get connected to that part of the cancer circle and bring hope to more people who are struggling with cancer and their families. And Lord, I pray for Candace's sister, Cinnamon, Lord, with this biopsy that she has coming up. Lord, I pray if it's not necessary that you would protect her from it. And if she does end up having it, that you'd protect her from any cancer cells spreading throughout her body. And I pray that the root of her bleeding and her struggles will be found and healed and addressed properly. Thank you that she has Candace helping her. And I pray that you would support and bless Candace as well. Thank you for Sheena being here and her questions, and for being with us today, Lord. And I thank you and I pray all these things in Jesus' name. Amen. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I'm going to stop recording now. Stop.